I'm so excited to have you on and talk all about money because that's what we're dedicating the entire month of March to. So this is
Perfect.
perfect timing. I'm thrilled. I should we just jump right in? I'm
Let's
like,
do it.
you've been here before. You know the drill. For those that don't know you yet, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Alora Rachelle, and I am a photographer sales strategist. I basically help people double their prices, make more money, the six figure, all that thing. Like making money is my specialty. I don't even know. Like my dad has masters in sales. I have watched him growing up. I have read all the sales books as a teenager, so that is my bread and butter, and that's my thing. And psychology as well. They're all together.
We love. What did you, can you remind us how you started? It's been years now since you've been on the podcast. So even refresh my memory. You
Yes.
started as a wedding photographer, question mark?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I shot my first wedding in 2011. Let's go all the way back. 2011, I took photography as a studio class. I actually was going to school to be a web designer. And when I went to the class, there was lots of elder men. And then I was like, maybe not. And so I was like, can I change my major? And they're like, yeah, you can drop out of this class, but the only class available is studio photography. What do you know? It was so fun, easy A, as I had thought. For being a creative, this is probably like a weird take, but I thought being a creative was so lame. And I'm left-handed.
Really?
I know. I was like, you can't make money off of that. Like my whole thing is like wasting time, even as a child. Who thinks like this? Like,
What's your sign?
I'm a Taurus.
Do you know what your rising is?
A Taurus. Like I'm a double Taurus.
Interesting. You don't have any Capricorn?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not super good at astrology. I just
That's
know.
okay. They're like the workhorses. So I was like, I wonder if
No,
you've got some Cap in there.
I think, actually, now that I think about it, I think it's Sagittarius, the third
Okay,
one.
fun.
Maybe. I don't know what
Fun.
anything means.
Okay,
Like,
sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
please continue. Where was I?
You were reading all the books. You really wanted to focus on making money even as a teenager, so you
Oh,
thought
yeah,
being a
yeah.
creative was a waste of time.
No, totally. Yeah, yeah, I did not believe you could make money off of creativity. It was like that. Like, oh, you have to have some kind of other job. Even though I wanted to be a web designer, I wanted to make multiple six figures. This was my goal, 200K. This is like 2004, 2008.
Hmm.
I want to make 200K and have seven kids. That did not happen. Thank goodness. After one, I was like, two is plenty. So we're done. And that happened. And so anyway, I got into studio photography. My teacher, he used to photograph like celebrities. He's shot Michael Jackson many times. And so he's like, you need to be a wedding photographer. And I was like, sir, what is a wedding photographer? Like nobody's gonna pay for that. And he's like, you can make thousands of dollars. I was like, no, I don't think so. That's crazy. Like I did not know anything about wedding photography, the industry, because back
Hmm.
then it was kind of ran by, and excuse the reference, but like older men,
Yeah.
and they charged like $500 for everything. I think Hosa Villa was like entering the space around that time, and then
Mhm.
he changed the game for me. Um, tangent, chasing squirrels. So anyway, I was a wedding photographer for from 2011, and then I kind of like ping ponged in and out, had part-time jobs, whatever. I went full time in 2014, and then 3 days after I got home from the hospital, my business went mini viral, and I booked 17 weddings in a month.
Oh my God.
And mhm.
Wait, can you say more about that? What do you mean mini viral? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was posting, like, you remember back in the day when you could post on Instagram 35 times a day? That was the norm. Like you just kept
Oh
posting
my
and
God. Yeah.
chronological order. Yeah, I feel like a dinosaur right now. Like, does anybody know what chronological order
No,
is for
you guys
Instagram?
remember pre-algorithm Instagram? That was a thing at some point.
There was no algorithm. You would make one post and get like 150 likes instantly, and you can have 100 followers. It was wild.
No, I remember I had 1,000 followers and I got 10,000 likes on a photo once.
Yeah, yeah. And that was
Crazy.
like, it was so normal. Like we constantly were hit with dopamine. Everybody had a high self-esteem. The good old days, the early 2000s. So I posted 3 to 5 times a day. I followed this person, was like, if you want to, like, I don't think it was about going viral. I just wanted to book weddings. I was like,
Mm.
I want to stop being a senior photographer. The moms are driving me nuts. I would love to photograph weddings. So I posted all the second shooting I was doing. I posted 3 to 5 times a day. Regardless, I went viral-ish on the Detroit Metro Times. They named me as the number one wedding photographer to follow on Instagram, but they listed me as number one. Now, I don't know if they thought I was number one. I probably wasn't, and that's fine. That's cool. Like I'm cool with it. But like they listed me as number one. So all the brides immediately inquiry form like broken, Squarespace inquiries like in spam. Like it was absolutely insane. I was constantly on calls booking and I was very underpriced. I was at 2,700 maybe, and I thought that was high ticket. I was like, "What?" So then people were like, "I want more. Can you give me an album?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, 3K." I'm just like, they're like, "Yeah, 3,500, no big deal." Brain just anyway, whole business crazy. So I did that for 2 years. Literally, my daughter would be in my arms, like sleeping, and I would just be like, "Yeah, yeah, absolutely." Like I can't meet in person because I just had a baby 3 days ago, but I could still shoot your wedding. And yeah, they were like, "We're so afraid you're gonna book up." So that happened. Burned out 2 years in a row. Almost burned the entire business to the ground. The pandemic saved my life. So this is another hot
Mm.
take. I actually didn't know what a vacation was. I never seen the beach. I never did anything but work. I triple, quadruple headers, like you name it, that was my life. And so after the pandemic, I was like, I will never be that again. So what can I do? And I was terrified to raise my prices. I had so much drama. I was like, nobody's ever going to pay X, Y, and Z. Like my goal was to be like, 5K. And then of course the dream possibly 10K, but even that seemed crazy. So I had this really, really intentional like strategy session with myself, and I kind of like I created what it's called like the brand story, but like going through why I did this, why I started this, what I love. And so after figuring out my uniqueness, I orchestrated my own rebrand. So I was like my own creative director. And so I hired all these people and I was like, this is what I want to look like. This is how I want it to feel. So we launched this rebrand and I tripled my prices and it went very well. So we're like
Love.
with a newborn. So I did it the second time, booked only 12 weddings, made multi six figures with a team, did the whole thing, stepped into luxury. That's my story. Crazy.
When did you step more into coaching? Like when did that start picking up?
Yeah, so I launched the wedding CEO I think when my son turned 1.
Okay.
That was like I knew that I didn't I my back couldn't take weddings forever.
Real.
Um Okay. Like at that point, I think it was like I was 11 years, 10 years shooting weddings, and I was like, okay, this was fun. I'm a whole mother now, and I really want to get my weekends back, which I did, 12 weddings a year is like nothing. But then I went full on into coaching, like 2023 was my last year I shot weddings.
And you're not taking any more.
No, ma'am.
Love. How's it feel?
It feels great. Thanks for
Good.
asking. It's really weird though. It's a really weird feeling not having to look at my camera and be like, "Oh, am I booked?" It's like, "No, I'm not actually."
Hmm.
Shot a wedding in a while, but keeping up with the industry and like my students keep me young, of course, but like yeah, it's just been an amazing journey and I love teaching people sales, marketing, all that jazz. I love helping people make money so they never have to experience what I had experienced. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what would you say as a coach is like your bread and butter? Like give us the elevator pitch. What's your specialty?
Screaming.
Like, yeah, what is the bread and butter for you?
I think it's pricing and sales. Yeah.
Okay. What does
Yeah.
that mean to you? Like what does that look like in your realm?
Basically, I can pretty much put a profitable package together for anybody in like 5 minutes. And I can pretty much rip apart
Okay.
pricing. Yeah. Using like the package method, or if people want a one size, one package for everything a la carte, like just teaching them how to make, the sales psychology of like appealing numbers and like how do you upsell them, how to best serve them, just being like the best option versus just being like, will you please hire me? Like that pick me
Mm.
needy energy versus just like owning into your confidence. Even like the way I speak, like a lot of people like you're so intimidating, you're so intense. I'm just like, well, I know what I'm gonna say. Like I'm not insecure about this. Like this is what I'm saying. This is what I mean. You're not like, oh, does she really mean that? Like just from my tone
Mm.
alone, you're like, okay, yeah, she's been somewhere, she's done some things, she's got a story.
So where do you start with clients? Like where do you look at pricing first? Like
Mm.
when should people, let's start at the beginning. When should people start being like, maybe something's going on with my pricing, or let me make some changes with pricing? Like, what are kind of some of the symptoms that something about your pricing and strategy needs to change?
Oh yeah. I think too, I usually try to figure out what their problem is first because it cannot
Mhm.
always be pricing. That is my specialty. And like I love sales and all that stuff, but sometimes it's a brand issue, it's a marketing issue. And your pricing might be fine. You just might not be marketing. So I recently enrolled a couple of clients who had two different issues, but they looked the same.
Mhm.
Like they charge the same essentially. So like one of them, she's like, okay, I'm at 6K, I'm trying to get to 10K. Like I have kids. I've rebranded. I have all this luxury look, but I have no inquiries and I can't like afford my business right now. But she's like, "Do I need to raise my prices?" And I was like, "No." I said, we need to clean up your messaging because you kind of look like every other photographer in fine art film." I was like, "Why should they pick you other than pricing?" And she was just like, "I don't know." And I was like, "We're going to find that out." So, I usually go on an intensive, we figure out like their uniqueness, their why, all that great stuff. Oh, all that personal brand things. And then with her, I was like, you need a like strategic marketing plan that works for your energy, that works for your style. But either way, you can't stop marketing. You stop marketing, your business breaks. So
Mhm.
that was her issue. Another girl also charging the same prices, but she's like, I want to leave my 9 to 5. I'm on the verge of burnout. I'm actually booked for this year and halfway booked for next year. I'm like, that's terrible. That is like, people are always like, oh my gosh, I have no weddings booked for next year. I'm like, great. That's good because we're going to change your business and you'll be so mad that you booked 10 weddings at 2K, at 4K. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I just feel like those mindset shifts of like how we view like a successful business or where I should be or what I should be doing is very personalized. And so that's like my bread and butter is like personalized attention, strategy, but also tailoring it, to them and their business.
So, what are some questions or like prompts that people can ask themselves or start to work through in order to identify like what the issue is and what's going on? Like, what are some of the things that you talk to your clients about? Let's say, or like, let's walk through them. So, like, what if the issue's branding? Like, what questions do you start
Mm,
with there?
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I put a threads like a couple of months ago or a year ago about which problem it is. And so I just put it plain simple. It's actually pinned on my profile if you'd like to visit.
Oh, amazing.
I barely yap, but when I do, I get carried away. So if you're not attracting dream couples or couples that feel like a fit or they're not aligned, then that's like a brand and a messaging issue. Like you're not speaking to the one that you want to, and your brand is not showcasing what they're looking for. A lot of times they're like, oh my gosh, like this couple came to my engagement session in pajamas or flannels, or I mean, that's a very worst case scenario, but like, or they didn't value me or they didn't give me a 5-star review. And I'm just like, okay, great. Well, what does your work look like? Oh, I haven't updated that in 3 years. I'm like, great. You're getting 3 years ago clients then. Like, that's the problem. You need to change your portfolio. You need to clean up the visuals. And it's okay every once in a while. You don't have to always have like a super profitable, high expensive like rebrand, but you can refresh. You can clean up your portfolio. You can pick your best of images and switch them around. Go through your weddings, go through everything. Is this clear? Is this current? Sometimes we get into this mode where we just want everything to work. We want free money. We want less effort. And like, who doesn't? Like, that's a goal. But
Mhm.
with photographers, we have to always be top of mind. We have to be current. We have to be refreshed. And if we want to keep raising our prices, like the pricing needs to reflect the work. Like they both go hand in hand. So that's the brand issue. And then if you're not even getting inquiries, then that's the marketing issue. It's like, are you even showing up? No. Okay, great. Do you blog? No. Okay, we got to do something. Is there somebody we can hire if you cannot write a blog, if you just can't, if you literally just don't know what happened on the wedding day, if you don't even know your clients, can we hire somebody? Can they pull from your inquiry forms? Like, can we get out there? Can we do something? And if Instagram doesn't work for you because of the many reasons and the algorithm changes and stuff, like what platform does work for you? A lot of people love TikTok. It's very personable, it's very relaxed, it's chill, and you accidentally go viral all the time. Change your strategy. And then for sales, it's just if they ghost you and if they don't book, then that's a sales issue. So if
Mm.
they ghosted you, probably because you weren't following up, and then what was the other one? Oh, they're not booking, probably because you're not answering their questions or meeting their needs, or maybe your energy was off. Maybe you kept saying, "Oh, I'll offer that as a discount," or they're like, "Oh, this is our budget. Oh, I can do that. That's my new pricing." Like all of those things create the multi-level problem system of wedding photographers and the kind of problems that I'm constantly solving on a weekly basis. Yeah.
I would love to talk about the third one, especially when it comes to I have so many like DMs and conversations with photographers that are like, I'm getting ghosted or I'm not sure how to execute my sales calls. I think sales is just like one of those things that people are so scared of. Like they're just
Yeah.
terrified of coming across the wrong way. They're terrified of saying the wrong
Mhm.
thing, feeling too
Mhm.
pressury. Like we always use the example of like used car salesmen. Like that's always
Yeah.
everyone's worst nightmare. So where do you start with that? Like, how do you start coaching people on how to sell when it's not something that comes naturally to them? Let's say they got into this because they're like, I just love photography. Like, I'm not a salesman.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all mindset too. I think that was one I didn't bring up. It's like if you can't do anything, then that's a mindset issue.
Hmm.
you know? So, a lot of the times, a lot of the issue is just mindset and you living in your head 24/7 and spiraling like a hamster on repeat versus kind of like understanding why you feel that way. Why do you feel like a used car salesman? Was there a sales experience that you hated? What did they do? How did it go? How did it make you feel? But me, I mean, I feel like the energy that I bring, at least with my students, is like a sense of awareness and a sense of confidence, being like, you need to really own who you are and you need to own the way that your experience is. You really need to own like all of these things. And when you develop a sense of confidence and understand how to serve your couples, it's not going to feel like selling, you know?
Mm.
Like when you get them on a call, if you're answering all of their questions before they even have them, like that was one of the biggest things I knew I was on track is like I would get to the end of the call and be like, all right, do you have any questions for me? They're like, you touched on everything and more. Where do I sign? And I'm like, oh yeah, but also
That's right.
thank you. So but like if there's so many things you can do though. Like you can always offer incentives. You can have like if you book within this amount of time, like I'll throw this in. Like there's so many other things you can do. But like when it comes to sales, you just have to change your mindset on selling because this is a business. Like if this was a hobby, if this was your little business that you're just playing around with and you're part-time in something else, you don't plan on going full-time, then that's fine. But at the end of the day, like we all need to make money, you know?
Mhm.
Telemarketers need to make money. I should know. I was one. 0 out of 10. Worst job ever. Um, but like, yeah, this is just like you kind of have to wrap your mind like if I'm going to have a business, if I'm going to scale a business and build it, I have to figure out sales, but maybe figure out sales in a way that feels aligned to you.
Mm.
Don't have to be pushy. If you're being pushy, it's because you need the money. And that is the worst energy to have. Any human being can pick that up a mile away. It is really weird. I'm trying to figure out like what sales term this is, but like just that needy energy. As soon as I think that you need my money, I'm I'm like, no,
Out.
I'm
Out.
I don't know. It's so weird. And I had a friend of mine, she was like gonna hire somebody to finish her basement. And her brother, like she was like, yeah, this is his price. And he keeps asking me about this. And he keeps asking when I'm gonna book, when I'm gonna book. And he's like, is this person like just start? Like, do they have a lot of clients? She's like, yeah, they just started like this year. He's like, run. He needs your money. It's not even like he wants to serve you. It's not that he's offering you a deal. It's just like he just needs your money. Like
Hmm.
that's the different energy of sales. Like the car salesman, I'm sure you have to buy a car like based on their commission, like today. That is their mindset. We don't have to do that. You can book a couple in 24 hours, like sure, but I think if you just kind of have I'm only booking this amount of weddings a year, like and once this deadline it happens, your proposal is going to be released. Like I don't need it. And it's kind of
Hmm.
like, oh, well, maybe I like she's in demand, like maybe she's really good. So like all
Hmm.
that, the different ways and the perspectives about a client experience and the sales process, like they all play together. So, what would I say? Really dive into getting out of this like starving artist mindset, feeling needy, feeling like I'm a creative, I can't do business, I can't sell, I can't market. I just want to make art. It's just, you're just going to have to come to terms with that's just not your reality. But you
Mm.
can make this a hobby and have lots of fun doing it. That is your choice and option.
No, absolutely. And I'm like, that's a whole other conversation that I've been talking to like a lot of people about. And like I know we talked about it on your podcast, but I have this new
Mhm.
coaching container where we've really been talking about like personal success and what that looks like for
Yeah.
you. And it was really cool to like I had a client that was like, I love photography and I actually don't love it as a business. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to do it as a job anymore. Like I want it to be a hobby. And like you're right. We don't have to dive into it, but I'm like, you can always get a real, like, not a real, like full-time job, like,
Yeah.
and do this as a hobby, and that's so fine.
Hmm.
Um, but if you want to do this as your job, you have to sell, and like that is the reality
Yeah.
of it. And I think I love that you touched on the mindset of it because I think people underestimate like how much loving your job and feeling passionate about your job is a sales tool in and of itself. Like I'm like, it's so easy to get on a call and tell my clients how excited I am and how much I would love to shoot their wedding because it's not a lie. I would just love to shoot their wedding. Like
Hmm.
it's not about the money. I'm obsessed with doing it. So one, I'm like, I always tell people, I'm like, work on that first.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'm like, if you're only doing it for the money, something's majorly wrong. I'm like,
Yep.
for anyone listening, do not get into the wedding industry for money. Like that's you can earn great money, but I'm like you will burn out so quickly it will blow your mind. Like you have to love it.
Hmm.
But let's kind of talk through like can you give us for those of us that are like super intimidated by sales calls, let's say we have
Sure.
done the work though to get to a place where we love our job, we're just like unsure of like logistically how to navigate those calls. What are some things that you always talk about or like some questions that you always try to answer before your clients have the opportunity to ask? Like what does obviously every phone call and conversation is going to be different and nuanced, but like, are there things that you always try to talk about or bring up or
Hmm.
answer before your client has the opportunity to ask?
That's such a good question. The first thing is kind of like setting the authority versus putting the ball in their court. And that is a good percent why a lot of couples don't book or ghost because they're in the driver's seat and they're driving the conversation and you never set expectations. I have a story actually. When I hired my wedding photographer, we met up for coffee and we just sat there staring at each other. She was a documentary photographer. So she's like, I'm very hands off. I'm very approachable. And that's what I wanted because back then they didn't
Mhm.
have the editorial documentary mix, available.
Mhm.
But I literally ran that call myself. I was like, oh, so then tell me about you. Tell me how you got into the weddings. And at the end, I was just like so nervous. I was so nervous. I was like, oh my goodness, like, how did I run this call? Like, that's so weird that she didn't, started off asking about me. I had to ask about her. So, in general, though, I think it is like a sales thing of like positioning of like who is in control of the conversation is going to set the
Mhm.
precedence for the entire conversation. So that's number one. Introducing yourself, saying how this is going to go, how long it's going to take, and just saying what you're going to walk through. That alone is like, okay, I'm here. This is your show. This is your call. But then as you're going through the call, like what I do is I normally talked about like my experience, like what my style is, what sets me apart, what got me into weddings. Like I connected with them if they didn't already know from my Instagram. They're like, yeah, yeah, we already know. We already know. We saw that on an Instagram story and stuff. And I'm like, great, my job is working. But then afterwards, I would talk about them. And we would just talk about the wedding from there on out. So I set the precedent, I talked about myself, and then the whole entire thing was about their wedding, about them as a couple, how they met. And then I pretty much asked them questions. And then any question they had, I answered it with my solution and how I offer the solution in my business. And so
Mm.
immediately, it's like if somebody gets all of their questions answered and it's like, "Oh, you help that? Oh, you work with this kind of couple? Oh, you've done this? Oh, you shot at this venue? Oh, this, that, and the other? Oh, you offer all of this?" Yes, I do. And that all, I feel like the sales part, and that's all available if you, but that is pretty much it. Like you're just answering objections. That's what a
Mm.
sales call
Mhm.
is. And Of course, the follow up is important and sending them reminders and making sure like there's some kind of urgency there. But like your presence, your authority, you serving them, you showing up, like all of that pretty much encapsulates the sales call. That's
I
it.
love that. What
Yeah.
would you say is like your structure for follow-ups? Because I think that's something people get like they just overthink. Like they're like,
Mhm.
how long do I wait? What do I say? How many times do I say it? Like,
Yeah.
what is kind of your approach to following up if you don't hear back from a couple after a consult?
That's great. So well, immediately after the call, like I would send over a custom proposal like in less than an hour. I don't know. I feel like the early bird always gets the worm. And a lot of times that I booked weddings is because I respond to the inquiry within 30 minutes. Not everybody needs to do that. Not everybody has HoneyBook on
Whoa.
their phone, but
Yeah.
I did. And I would
Mhm.
customize that email quick. So getting them on a call same day or next day, game changer. Now, the follow-up is kind of like a four-part system, and it's pretty easy. I mean, like the first day you send that proposal, and then maybe a couple days later, you're gonna be like, "Hey, just want to let you know, like this is going on. This is the urgency. This is how many days you have. It was such a great time hanging out with you." And then like maybe 5 days after that, just kind of like, "Hey, so just to let you know, like that your proposal expires X. It's gonna be released X." And then the last one, which is the 7 days. I don't know. I Some people are like, okay, this expires in 48 hours. So you can kind of speed that up depending on how your proposal system works. But like my last response was like 7 days for me, like, hey, like your date is released. Thanks so much for your time. It's been fun. But contrary to the industry standard, my conversion rate was like 85%. So that didn't really happen too much.
Hmm.
Which even with like my raised prices, it was still, I think, in like 50 to 70. So
Wow.
it works, babes. It works.
It really does. And I just like, I feel like we can hear in your voice like how authoritative you are. Like you're so confident and you come in so just like this is what it is. And I think like what we can reiterate and like what people need to know and think about is that if you come in with that energy, not only are your couples going to respond to that in the way that you want, but that's also how you weed out not ideal clients. And I think
Mhm.
people will get so confused on like, why am I working with these clients that walk all over me or are trying to run the show or are so unaligned? And it's like, how did you set the expectation of how this relationship was going to go, right? Like that's another thing is like your
Mhm.
sales call or your consultation or whatever it is, like you are setting the precedence on how this entire experience is going to go. So if you go into that meeting and let them run the show and they do end up signing with you, they will be running the show until the end of the contract.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that is how that's going to go. And I think sometimes, granted, kind of unhinged clients exist, but like I think a lot of times we love to be like, oh, these clients, like these nightmare clients are finding me all the time, or like I'm having such bad luck. And it's like, look inward on that, like in the best
Mhm.
way. Like it's not a
Mhm.
negative thing. You have control over it, but like you did set the precedence for that and you set the expectation of how that was going to go. And so it really does start with that confidence and that authority on and clarity on like who you are, what you do, what you bring to the table, and what that experience is going to look like and how you communicate that to your client from the very beginning.
Yeah. And the biggest compliment is like usually the guys are the most hesitant to get on the call, but I would have like they would be responding back to me because like trying to
Mhm.
match like my authority and I'm like if I get the respect of the guy like I'm in. I'm
Yeah.
really in. They're like matching my energy and they would like ask questions like, "Oh, like, what is this going to be like? I don't like taking pictures." That was a huge
Oh
objection
my
my couples
God.
always
Yeah.
had. Like, "We hate taking photos." And I'm like, don't even worry about it. My husband's an engineer. I can pose anybody, okay? He's an introverted introvert, blah, blah, blah. This is a couple that had this experience. This is what I did. I will send you the gallery. Like you see all those like objection handling answers. They're like, okay, great. That was my only question.
No,
They're like
literally.
signed.
No, I think that's always like the guys, like if there's a man present in the relationship, like that's always going to be his number one objection is like, I hate
Mhm.
getting photos taken. And I always loved being able, because like a huge piece of feedback, especially when I was in like my really editorial era is like people would be like, oh, they look like models. Like, are these styled shoots? And I was like, no, these are couples that also on their consult calls were nervous just like you. Like, these are couples that also said they hate getting their photos taken. Like, you're looking at people that have said the exact same thing as you, and that's been my entire career is people like coming to me being nervous and like, I've got you, I'm the expert. And yeah, I love what you're saying. I know I'm just like beating a dead horse a little bit and being redundant and repeating back to you what you
Yes,
just told me, but I'm
it's
like,
great.
yeah, it really is such a confidence thing to go into these relationships and experiences with your clients and just exactly lay out how it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you make a high-end luxury, what is that called? Investment, and that could be even the clothes you wear. It could be a purse, it could be
Mhm.
whatever. You're looking at like, okay, how does this help me? For me, it's like, what is this material made out of? Like, that's number
Mhm.
one. Is this even high quality?
No, literally.
Which is why they say, "Can I see your galleries?" I'm like, that question means that they're hesitant about the value of your
Mhm.
price and what you offer. So like there's just it goes into every part of your life. And I'm actually going to be adding a whole like updated sales module on this, but like it goes into play with every single interaction you make. And my biggest brand example is going to be Apple, and it always will be because I am a customer for life. Okay. And me and
Mhm.
my husband used to watch the Apple conference every year on our honeymoon because we're nerds. But I
Stop.
was like, isn't that terrible? He had like a clock timer and everything. It's bad, guys.
I'm
What who
obsessed.
who does this? So we're watching it like, okay, we need to know like what the updates are to the iMac, to the laptop, to the watch. I think they just launched the watch. I don't know. So many things. That was like 10 years ago. So all of these things, and I'm just like, I'm invested in the whole presentation. I'm invested in the story behind it. I want to know what they're working on, why they're working on it. It's the same thing with everything you purchase. It always goes back to brand and sales, the top two. Now, nobody does marketing because nobody likes to talk about themselves, but hey, Apple talks about their conference like how far in advance? Like months in advance. My favorite example is the Barbie movie. I mean, they dropped their teaser trailer like what, 8 months before they actually launched the movie, and they had hundreds. I don't even know if like was it 200, 250, hundreds of partnerships. Like Crocs had Barbie stuff. There was Barbie Burger King burgers with pink sauce. I mean, there's a whole networking collab they did, but because of that marketing and because their brand was so memorable, it was so easy for the sales. Everybody showed up to the theater in what color? Pink. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
whole thing, just it all plays in. Every single business is doing this. You're just making it complicated. You're making it a big deal, and it's like I don't know. This is like the whole confidence thing. But you just kind of you gotta if you gotta journal it out, journal it out. If you have to run it out, run it out. But you gotta keep it moving. Like move forward, keep it moving, fix the problem, and let's hurry up and implement the strategy because you're missing out on money. We're leaving money on the table as we speak. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Oh, I'm like, we could do an entire episode about the Barbie movie marketing.
Yes.
That I think is like one of the greatest examples of
Mhm.
branding and marketing and like the
Yeah.
way they went about that was just like groundbreaking, truly. But that's, yeah, a conversation. I'm like, we could talk about that for hours. That's like a whole case presentation. But no, I love all of this. All of this has been so helpful, Alora. Thank you so much for coming
Yay.
on and talking about, such a taboo topic too. Like people get so weird
Mhm.
talking about money. We've come a long way in the industry for sure, but it can be uncomfortable. And I think it's also like really
Mhm.
uncomfortable for those of us that identify or were raised as women. Like
Yeah.
women earning a shit ton of money is a new thing. And like it's still uncomfortable. And I'm like, it's only been a few decades since we could own a credit card. Like it's crazy. Like it really is so new. So thank you for coming on and being such an example of one being a badass woman that earns a shit ton of money and how to do it for ourselves. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. This is great. Yes, I want to take off like the taboo about, I think it's honestly all a money problem. It might not even be
Mm,
about sales. it might just all be rooted from how we think about money, like how we grew up thinking about money, women earning money, women
Hmm.
earning more money than their husbands. The amount of my students that are now the breadwinners and had retired their husbands to bring on to their business to make a certain amount of money, to scale the business, to raise their prices so they can have kids. I'm like, this is a huge win. Multi six
No,
figure
it's
is the goal now.
amazing. Hmm. No,
Yeah.
I
So
love watching a wife be the breadwinner. I'm like, that's my favorite thing in the world. I really love it. I'm like, that was me when I was married. Like, I'm obsessed with it. I think it's the best thing ever.
yeah, and there's just so many ways you can make money. And if you when you finally get rid of whatever that mindset thing is, that belief you have about money and you get rid of it and you just start unabashedly showing up, selling, marketing and I don't know, running a business, there's just no limit. There's literally this there is no ceiling. The, you can make as much money as you want, as you have the energy for, honestly. So yeah, I want to
Oh,
change that. I want more moms making more money. I want more women. I want more everything. Everything. I
yep.
just want everybody to have all the things. Yeah.
Yep.
Without burnout.
Exactly. Yeah, without burnout for sure. Oh, well, obviously we will link everything in the show notes for everyone, but can you let us know where to find you
Perfect.
online and learn from you more?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Alora.Rachelle, and if you can't spell it, it'll be in the show notes. I have
Mhm.
two freebies. I have a book your next wedding in 24 hours free training. It's alorarachelle.com/free training, free dash training. And then I have a free brand promise freebie workbook where you can kind of write out all those prompts and figure out what your secret sauce is and figure out why you became a wedding photographer in the first place. So, yeah, that's it. That's where you find me. And my podcast is currently the Wedding CEO podcast. We might be rebranding it, but just search Alora and I'm sure it'll come up. So, yeah.
Amazing. Oh, well, we will link all of that for you guys in the show notes. And Alora, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this. As always, it's so fun to chat with you. We need to do it sooner than 2 years from now. So thank you for coming on. And
Thank you
thank you
for
guys
having
for
me.
listening. See you guys next time.